Hey everybody, welcome to episode 12 of the Leven Podcast. I'm your gracious host, Leven, also known as Daniel. It's going to be a great episode today I got in store for you guys. I'm joined by Somebodysgun. He's a great friend of mine, doing some amazing work over at Daily Esports. Check him out on Twitter as well. His links will be in the description. Sure you guys are going to love this one. We talk a lot of Fortnite, a lot of Season 11, and a lot of things that have been happening recently. One of my favourite podcasts to record, definitely, and I'm sure you guys will like it. So if you do like it, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to leave a like. I would greatly appreciate if you're able to leave a like. If you're watching the Apple Podcast, be sure to leave some sort of rating. I'm not too sure you can do on Spotify, but I'm sure there is something, and I'll get back to you on that one later. But I know I haven't done a lot of the open floor stuff. I've not been making a lot of YouTube content outside of the podcast. So as you're watching this, there should already be a video up. And if not, there will be a video up later today, an open floor video. So be sure to check that on YouTube. I've been really enjoying making a podcast recently. Let me know down in the comment section below. Tweet at me who you want to see on the podcast. Whoever you want to see on the podcast, tweet at them to come on the podcast. And we'll try and make something happen. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the support you've been showing me recently. And we'll be back with a new episode very soon. Hey everybody, welcome to the Leven Podcast. Today is a special day. I'm joined by my good friend of the show, Somebodysgun. How you doing, bro?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm great. School's getting into my rhythm of school. Starting to play basketball again, I guess. Obviously, in terms of Fortnite, there's not been much going on. I guess we'll get into that more in a bit. Obviously, it's been a rough time in terms of playing. I think a lot of pros and just competitive players in general are kind of frustrated with the lack of things to do and play. How are you? What have you been up to recently?
Just been hanging out. I've actually had some free time myself and been playing some Fortnite. I haven't really gotten the chance to the past couple months and hop back in the game. It's not the most fun time right now, but it's at least still a good game.
It's weird though, because it was like when they added the zone wars thing, it was like, oh my gosh, like they like added a competitive mode as like a main mode. This is crazy. What's going on? Then it's like, I don't know. I feel like they want to like appease us and just it's like, oh, we gave you this, so we're gonna disappear for 3 weeks. But it's like, no. They've obviously also like extended season 11 or season 10. Sorry, when does it actually finish? Does it finish this week or next week?
Believe it ends on Sunday, and the new season. So, from my understanding, some sort of event's supposed to happen on Sunday, and then it's gonna go straight into the next season. But
oh wow,
that's just speculation from what I've read on the internet.
Do you know the event's gonna be?
I can't tell you, man. Normally the leakers are pretty good, but
I know. Trust
Epic
me.
Games has also found a way to keep them out.
This is what the event's gonna be, right? So you're gonna go into game. They're gonna make everyone like float in the sky. Then the screen's gonna go black, and that's the end of Fortnite. Bye. Pack it up. Epic. Take all their money. Run away. That's the end of Fortnite, guys. Bye. Get played.
On to the next one.
They might as well just rickroll everyone as well. Just play that music. So obviously the event we had just before this kind of break we have. Actually, to be fair, what I will say, is I do like the fact that we've had a break. I think people in our scene, especially because of how young people are and how excited people are, they don't value breaks, right? Like in other games, sports, everything, you have an off season, right? Like you have some sort of break established. And I don't know, like Epic, I don't know. The problem with Epic is that they think in such short bursts. So, in between every kind of seasonal event, there's always like this kind of break. And I think hopefully in an environment where we have more lands in the next couple of years, assuming Fortnite lasts that long, I think people will start to really appreciate these breaks more, right? Because if you're traveling and shit.
With you, the only problem with these breaks is the lack of communication. You don't know when the break's going to end because they could go ahead and announce today that there's going to be a tournament this weekend. It's great to have breaks, and I think players need to take advantage and relax for a little bit because CS and World Cup. I mean, those are stressful times for these young players, and having time to just decompress and get your mind right before going back into it's helpful. I just wish we would know when we're getting back into it.
I will say as well though, they have gotten a lot better when it comes to like announcing events, right? Like even before FNCS, we knew it was happening in a couple weeks in advance, and I'd like to credit that to, you know, the new era that I constantly go on and on about. You know, I say how I'm sure the viewers are tired of me here saying it, but it's like everything before World Cup, including even the World Cup, would have been kind of like planned and set in stone before Nate Nance and the like new team of people were introduced, right? The new comp team. So like that's why I credit everything after that, including FNCS, as part of that. And like the first thing that they did as part of that like new era, where, you know, everything that is comp related has come from them, is that they gave us a schedule. Like they told us, hey, in 3 weeks FNCS will start. Every week there will be Cash Cup for this. Like, so I think they've gone a lot better with that, and I'm sure we will see that again coming to start season 11. Hopefully we don't take any steps back, only steps forward. But obviously, like I said, we're gonna just have to wait and see really with that. I will say as well though, actually, just a side note before we start really diving into everything, is that I had a conversation with a teacher at my school about my podcast, right? And, you know, we were just kind of talking about, you know, how I do things, etc. And she kind of has convinced me that I shouldn't swear on here anymore. So from now on, no profanity. I'm gonna change my ways.
All right, I apologize if I do. I will try not to.
Like, you just gotta keep it clean, you know. Yeah, that's it. So, Miss, if you're listening to this, that's for you. On September 22nd, they made a squad announcement. That was the FNCS finals. It was crazy, right? Because it's like, it's, for me at least in EU, it's like 4 a.m. and I'm sitting there watching the West Coast stream, and I'm just there like, I've sat through all these hours of Fortnite, like, give me something. And then, boom, the squad announcement. You know, Zeke, the legend himself, comes out and says, for all you trios out there, you gotta pick up a fourth. Because for the next season of FNCS, we're going with squads. And it's like, Twitter just blows up. Everyone's like, squads are back, pog. Like, within like the first 10 minutes of the announcement, I know Booga like flipping announced that he was going to play with Saf and Zay, etc. And it was really hype. What was your initial reaction to the squad announcement?
Oh, I like switching it up. We're still so early in the competitive scene of Fortnite. I mean, you think about it, the game just came out 2 years ago, and the competitive scene followed. So I like testing out solos, duos, trios, squads, seeing what works best. And, you know, squads may not be the best game mode, but at least we'll find that out firsthand as opposed to never figuring that out. And you go back to the Fortnite Pro League days, like, it was squads. That's what people were playing in the beginning. So it's exciting to get back to that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's where I had my starting comp playing squads, and I think a lot of pros, you know, went back, you know, are remembering back to the olden days. You know, a lot of the quote unquote wash players were like, oh, my 9 months of squad practice is gonna finally come into play. And it's going to be interesting though, because the biggest thing that I kind of like looked at it initially, at least for EU, because I know NA never had customs, but we had custom squads, and all of our squad events were, you know, customs. But the difference was, we didn't fill up lobbies, right? Back then, the server performance was incredibly bad, you know, especially compared to what we have now. So we didn't fill up lobbies. We had maybe 60 players in the server, right? And we played squads that way. So obviously now, I think the initial reaction outside of the excitement was people were like, hey, squads aren't going to run well. After the FNCS finals, people were complaining about the performance of trios, and it's like, unless you guys are making massive improvements in Season 11, this isn't going to work out. And I 100% see where that's coming from. I like to hope that with every season, they improve server quality and server performance, but if that's not the case, then I really want to know their strategy, right, into how you make squads a less laggy environment to play. Do you have any?
And I don't think the servers can handle the extra people. Who knows if Storm Surge is going to play more of a factor now, and that's going to be tweaked a little bit. Hopefully they fix it to where you can actually see the damage.
Yeah.
That may become a bigger factor than it already is, because it's still something teams need to think about, especially in the final rounds.
Yeah, like it's I don't know how I feel about Storm Surge. I think I've never been a fan of a concept that they add this mechanic purely for the reason of they just need to get rid of players on the server. Like if Storm Surge had some sort of alternative motive that, you know, is linked with maybe how the map works, etc. Like just if it just had more, you know, explanation and reasoning behind it, other than sorry guys, we don't have the server performance, we need to get rid of a few of you guys. Or like, sorry guys, it's getting a bit too stale. You guys are, you know, playing too passively. We need to force fight so we can have action to show on the stream, etc. Like, I've never necessarily been a fan of that. You know, it's too. I've never felt like Storm Surge is natural in the flow of the game. I've always felt like it was a bit too forced. And it'll be interesting because if Storm Surge, like, if they just ramp it up, or maybe they add something else that eliminates players, etc. Like, you know, obviously there's rumors of new map for Season 11, right? So it's like, you never know what they could do or change, which will, you know, kind of add to that. I hope that we don't see anything drastic or anything that's just broken. I hope if they keep Storm Surge, they fix the blatant issues, like you said, like actually showing the damage. I think they need to actually do a better job of explaining it, right? Like my biggest thing with Storm Surge was that if you were a new player, right, and you just happen to join a solo game, and for some reason your solo game is just mad sweaty, like you have 60 people alive, like at whatever the Storm Surge threshold is, and it's like you get Storm Surge, there's no explanation in the game about what Storm Surge is, how it works. If you've never been told about Storm Surge and you experience it, you will have no idea what's going on. Like do you know what I mean? It's like it says on the side 150 below. It's like, if you're a new player, how would you know what on earth that is? Like, there's not. If they're gonna keep something like Storm Surge, I think you gotta, you know, add more, you know, in-game tutorials, or whatever, to kind of explain what these things are, rather than just kind of dash them in there. But yeah, that's just my take on it, I think.
Yeah, I have a similar take, but as of right now, we don't have a better way to the number of players besides increasing the elimination points. There needs to be something, because we've all seen the servers can't handle it, and
Yeah.
Storm Surge isn't perfect, but I don't know of a better solution right now.
But my biggest thing is, why do we have to have 100 players on the server? Like, going back to the thing of the olden, is like, why is it that we have to have 100 players on the server? Why can't we just have less? Like, I saw conversations on Twitter, right? Like, why don't we have less players on the server? And if you're too worried about the gameplay feeling too slow, you speed up the storm times, right? The mid-game storm times. Because even with the current state of the game, I'm sure there's a lot of players who feel like mid-game is still a bit too stale, right? So it's like, you lower the amount of people on the server, speed up the storm times, and, you know, see how that works out. Like, my biggest problem is that, like, going into the next FNCS, I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of testing. Like, I'd like to see them try out different things and see what works, right? Because going into the next conversation I want to have is, like, there has to be things that change about squads, or like there have to be attempts that they make, you know, to kind of change how things work. And obviously, if they don't try it, if they just kind of create something and put it in place, and it doesn't work out, then it could, you know, be the end of squads, or be like the downfall of squads in terms of, you know, people's popularity, like people's favoring of it. Like, my biggest thing is that the loot needs to change, right? You should not be able to, in squads at least, especially considering that they want to have full lobbies, 100 player lobbies. I don't think you should be able to land at a building and get nothing. I think they need to make 100% chest rate. I think Okay, in fact, let's even start that. What do you think of that? Because I think they should just add 100% chest rate. I was about to go into a whole rant, get excited, but let's slow it down a bit.
Gotcha. So I do think that the loot needs to be changed because there's going to be many points of interest that you simply can't land at because you won't be able to fully equip your team.
Exactly.
I mean, we saw that in trios. Basically, the team that landed retail uncontested won the game.
Yeah.
Time, but pretty often to the point where that should be something Epic's thinking about is we can't just overpower certain places and we need to provide an even spread of loot interest. It doesn't have to be everywhere, but you need to be able to land in different places other than retail and have success in the game. Hopefully, if we get this new map, that's something that they've thought about is spreading out the loot and adding a bit more, just kind of upping the spawn rates for squads. But again, who knows? We may have a whole new map going into next week. We may have the same map with some slight changes. I mean,
yeah, like with what you just said about the loot thing, right? My boy Jetpacks, formerly of Method, he's been doing a great job on Twitter, bringing out like really cool and interesting statistics to do with FNCS, and specifically the EU finals, right? And like a fun fact that he put out was that every winning team was uncontested at their drop. Every single one, every single team that won a game had that landing uncontested. Which, when you realize like that. If that's like a big deal, like a big like winning factor, it's gonna be like weird to see how that plays out in squads, because with less loot you can't that's not gonna be able to happen where you just get teams being uncontested. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they handle that. I think another big thing that I wanted to see changed is, I know this is something as well that I've seen you tweet about, and it's funny because we always joke about how we're like connected like mentally, like we always think the same things, but like I've been thinking of how we can establish roles within Fortnite, right? And just how we develop that aspect of things, because right now people don't have roles. Like, you know, there's some, I've been trying to do it, I've been calling certain people support players, and you know, you have IGLs, etc., but like establishing roles is a big thing, right? And I thought, hey, how's a way that Epic can easily make it so that you start to establish roles, moving squads, and, you know, stop like overpowered like landing spots from being abused. Like you have retail, like nobody should be able to go to retail and have triple RPG. Imagine squads with retail and it's like quadruple RPG. Like, no, that shouldn't be able to happen, right? So how about you just make it so that certain items are limited to the like one player on your team, so only one player on your squad can carry a heavy sniper at any one time. Because then, hey, boom, now you have to have a dedicated sniper. You see a heavy sniper, you give it to the best sniper in your team. That instantly creates like a type of role, right? Maybe you have it so that, you know, only one person can carry explodes. You have it so that one person on your team can carry 3 meds at a time, and the rest are just limited to 2. Like, doing things like this creates roles, and it's such an easy thing to do, and I think it would create such interesting dynamics within teams. But once again, is that something that Epic, I think, are going to try out or test out? No. But, you know, what's your take on that? You think that's something that could work? I think that would be an interesting idea to see play out.
I have a different take on that. I don't necessarily want the game to limit the loot that certain players can have. I think that the loot should be spread out enough to where it can't go to a single point of interest without getting extremely, extremely lucky and walk away with multiple heavy snipers, multiple RPGs. Because they've lowered that spawn percentage for the RPGs to where see a bunch of them in the game until the crystals at retail happen. Professional players are thinking about roles, because I just had the opportunity to speak with Macwood, and he said, so he's the team's IGL, and in trios he played with Young Calc and Zexro, and basically he IGLs, takes their input, and those guys just frag out. And for squads, they're adding Vinny, who they believe is the best support player in Fortnite. So they're looking IGL, 2 fraggers, and a support is the way they're attacking squads, and I'd be interested to see how other teams go about that.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm looking at some of, like, I have a list of all the, you know, confirmed squads we have so far, which we'll talk about in just a sec. Like, and like within it, I'm looking at, hey, this person's a support player, this person's a fragger, this person's a fragger, this person's the IGL, and like there's some squads that might not even necessarily have that much, right? But we'll get into that in a sec. So you don't feel like, you know, they should limit what people can have, right? Just because it's like that's the whole point of BR, right? There's that luck factor involved.
And no, I don't think it should be that way.
Okay, fair enough. How do you feel about no rarities? Like, so there's no such thing as a blue pump or green pump. It's just pump. Out of curiosity.
Not something I've ever thought of before.
Like,
depends on how it translates. Are all ARs then going to be blue ARs? Are all pumps going to be blue pumps? What's the spawn rate of those?
Like, because I was interested in it just because, like, back when they first introduced solid gold, I was like, like, are they just, like, what if you have this as, like, not solid gold necessarily that game, because obviously, you know, because of the way you have different weapons and stuff, but like, what if you only have one rarity of a certain weapon, rather than just having like, oh, you got a blue pump, I got a green pump, your pump does more damage than mine. But then like my biggest problem with that, like back in the day when thinking of it, was just that like, there's with a lot of the weapons, there's not many, like when you have a lot of bloom based weapons, like, it kind of just, I don't know. If guns had more like skill behind using them and like had actual weapon mechanics, then maybe that would make more sense, because it becomes less about rarity and more about how you use the gun. But I don't know. I think I've seen people kind of like, you know, talk about that kind of thing, and I was just wondering how you felt about it. Once again, I don't know if that's something I think they'd ever do. Plus, it's always satisfying, right, when you get like the better rarity weapon, and it's like, it's a loot factor thing as well, right? Because if you have a gold, a purple scar, and you see someone with a gold one, you're like, you see someone's loot, right, that you kill, you're like, okay, I need to rotate to that and try pick that up to upgrade, right? So if you get rid of rarity, then obviously that's a factor of the game that's taken away. So not necessarily something that works.
That I'm kind of just indifferent to that. I'm not sure if that would be good or bad.
Yeah, I think
something I've thought of.
I think overall that'd be bad. Going into squads though, and what squads we've seen form so far. I'm gonna just I'm gonna read. Wait, do you have a list of them? I can send you this list. Actually, I have.
Shoot it over to me.
Yeah, I'll send you this list. I have. I just want to read out some of the most interesting squads I've seen so far. The ones that I'm most excited about, I'd say. Like, I've kind of had like this way of ranking players and teams. Like, I call certain players elite, certain players star players, certain players superstar players, etc. And I have the same thing when it comes to actual squads, right? Like, I have teams that I think are like winning caliber teams, championship caliber teams. They're teams that I think are contending, so who are competing for that championship, who are not as good as those championship winning teams, but like are just there, right? Like, they're just small changes or maybe one roster move away from just reaching that point. There's obviously elite teams who are just like teams who are always going to be up there, but not necessarily pushing for the win. So within these new squads, at least I'll speak on behalf of EU, because there's a lot more EU teams on this list than there are NA, unfortunately. But I'd say obviously the most obvious one: Stompy, Mongrel, Aqua, Benji. Like, come on, like come
it's
on.
a scary looking squad.
Come on, that's literally like, obviously everyone's subject to their opinion, but like that's literally 4 out of the 5 best players in the EU, and for most people would probably say the top 4 players in the EU. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I've spoken to Benji about like roles within squads within trios back when they were playing with Mitro, and he kind of let me know like they're not like, they don't necessarily have defined roles, but like when you watch them, you can kind of see like how their roles play out. Like Benji is very much like an IGL. He makes a lot of calls, and weirdly enough, right, is like he plays the role of a support player a lot of the time, especially when he was playing with Mongra and Mitra, because those guys are fraggers at core, right? That's all they've ever done in Fortnite, and that's what they're best at. So like he was kind of forced into like a support role, which is weird because if you put Benji on any other squad, he can't be that star fragger, right? So it's like, I think maybe the one beauty that we might have with roles in Fortnite is how interchangeable they can be, right? Like in other games, in other sports, when you have someone who plays a role, it's very difficult for them to play outside of that role all the time. Whereas in Fortnite, I feel like it'll be very easy for people to kind of transition between different roles. So obviously you have Stompy, Aqua, and Mongra, who are just kind of pure fraggers. Stompy, I feel like has like my biggest concern with this team was the fact that like Stompy and Aqua, especially with Intrius, have had the privilege of having, in my opinion, like one of the top 3 support players in EU in Shinken. So like when you no longer have that support, how well are you able to operate? But with how talented these guys are, it won't even matter. Like it just won't even matter. Like it's ridiculous.
It does to a certain extent, right? Because you can't just have 4 people going and fragging out. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but the support player is going to be so important in squads that's going to be able to off of teammates as opposed to just creating plays. So maybe Benji Fishy takes that role upon himself and is like, you know what? I'm going to be the best damn support player in the world and help these guys frag out, and I'm going to IGL and lead this team to victory. Because support kind of has a negative connotation to it.
But it shouldn't.
In my opinion, going to be so vital to the success of a squad that it should be something you think about first as opposed to think about last.
Yeah. Because I feel like fragging is something that I wouldn't say you can find easily, but with it's harder to find good supports than it is good fraggers, in my opinion. And I think that is the role Benji will have to take. But at the same time, it's like to a degree, like within other squads that we will probably discuss, like lower down, you know, this list of squads that I have in front of me, like you'll see like where certain players, like if you don't have this kind of support, quality support players, like your team will suffer. Whereas like with like even within, you know, MMB, right, like there was sometimes chemistry, like if you just watch them, there were chemistry issues a lot of the time with communication, etc. But like because of how far ahead those guys were in general, like it often didn't make that big of a distance to their performance. And I feel like that's what will happen with a lot of FNCS with this team. Obviously when you have the finals where you have all of the best players in one server playing with each other, then obviously you need to iron those things out. But like I feel like just the open nature of, you know, most of FNCS, I feel like these guys won't struggle like one bit. But like you said, like we'll have to see how that plays out. My next, and I think those are, for them, they're like my number 1 team right now. The next team that I think is like a championship caliber team, like one of the top, most elite teams in EU. And obviously this is all hard to say considering we haven't seen anyone play yet, but just in terms of the names they have on their roster and how I think they fit together, I'd say Savage, Bella EU, Tohaj, and Shinkin. Like, holy, the IQ on that squad is ridiculous. Like, I obviously spoke to Bella EU not too long ago, just last week actually, and obviously he had the conversation with, you know, Savage when like recruiting Savage, and I know he did the same thing for Shinkin, like of, hey, this is how me and Tohaj like to play, this is our system, it's worked for us, we were like one of the most consistent teams in EU last FNCS, are you willing to buy into that system and play that style? And even from watching them play like trio scrims and like just conversating about the game, it's like you see the chemistry's there. I think they click well together, and I think they're going to be ridiculously successful. I don't know how much do you watch Tohaj or Bella much?
I haven't much. I understand the play style. It's kind of like a slower mid ground, low ground, tarping, play it safe kind of style.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see them drive the boat and let frickin' Savage and Chichikin frag out. Because, like you said, Chichikin is a solid support player, so he can support the entire squad and help everyone. And then you could just set Savage free to go and pick off anyone and anything in its place, because he's one of the quickest players that you see, just letting his skill be set free in a squad that's going to help guide him, I think, like you said, is going to be amazingly successful.
Yeah, like that squad, like that literally, it gives Savage so much freedom to be able to just dominate a server. And like, I feel like we're going to see it consistently where these guys are just always there in the end game and always, pushing throughout the event. One of my personal favorite squads, though, like one squad that I've been, I was like, this is like a squad I was hoping I'd see, because so far, like all the rosters, like all the two that we've spoken about, have been like international rosters, international teams, players from different countries, etc. This is the Swedish lineup of death. Like this is literally, in my eyes, the four best Swedish players. And it's gonna be so fun to watch these guys. Crew, Chapix, Beehive, and Ritz. Like I've been speaking so highly of Chapix recently. Like, I genuinely think Chapix is like the 5th best player in EU right now. Just the way he's dominated solo competition and how consistent him, Crew, and Beehive have been throughout trios. And then add in Ritz, who played amazingly with Patty and I can't even remember their third now, that's embarrassing. And then Dretta, sorry. It's like, I'm really excited to see this. Like, I've always been someone who said, like, hey, no matter how good you can speak English in your international roster, your comms are always going to be better in your home language, right? In your native language. Like, regardless of how well you speak English, in my opinion, your comms will just always be better in the language that you speak. So seeing this Swedish lineup is gonna be really fun to watch.
I think that's something that isn't talked about a lot. Is many of these players do speak English, and that's how they can communicate across several different countries or languages.
Yeah.
But how quickly the end game is played and how important late game calls are. You're right. Like, just being able to have that half second without being able to speak it in a non-native language to you is huge. And we'll see if that plays squads that are going to have to speak languages other than their first language.
Yeah. I'm really hyped to see how it works. And it's like, it just makes it easier. Like, hey, I don't necessarily have to say Crew, Chapix, Beehive, and Ritz when I want to talk about. I can just say the Swedes, and you should know who I'm talking about.
And someone signed Chapix.
Yeah.
Come on. How's that guy still a free agent, man?
I'm sure something's in the works, because there's no, it's literally no way. There has to be some serious negotiation. Like, he must be struggling to pick between top tier organizations or something, because that kid is way too talented, and it's he's incredibly intelligent and humble as well. Like, I was watching him VOD review one of his solo cups, one of the most recent ones, and it's the way he's talking about the game, you see he has such a great understanding, and he's very humble. He doesn't, as much as he's actually been dominating EU, he doesn't talk like someone who's I'm just better than everyone. He's yeah, I learn from everyone, I pick up things from everyone, and that's what's just led me to my success. So really excited to see where that guy ends up playing for. Obviously here we have another team that I was really interested to see. To preface, I think that's my third team that I'd say is a championship caliber team within EU. And then my fourth team, the final team that I think is absolute top tier, should be expecting a victory for the next FNCS, and anything else is maybe a failure, I'd say. Like, it's win or bust. Would be Airwax, Nikov, Nate, and Hawkers. Now, French Fortnite. If you don't know already, French Fortnite has been dominant throughout all of Fortnite. Completely throughout all of Fortnite. They have been consistently at the top. But what people haven't realized or haven't understood, right, because, you know, we haven't had squads, is that the French guys in squads? Nah. The French guys in squads are ridiculous. Like, they've had so much practice of it. They had it for so much longer. Squad customs for France were a thing for so long, and these guys are so vetted when it comes to being able to compete as a squad. And it's like, I'm expecting a resurgence of, you know, more of the OG French guys just like dominating squads. Obviously Airwax and Nikov, like, we don't have to say anything about them. You know what they're about. They are there at the top in every event. Nate has become one of my favorite players to watch. Like, in a scene, like in a French scene that has like a lot of, you know, slower kind of players when it comes to like maybe mechanics and more intelligent, methodical players. He's been able to kind of pick that up and pick up the IQ and still be incredibly cracked mechanically. Like, he's one of the best mechanical players I've seen at the highest level. And then obviously Hawk is amazing as well. Like, I'm really excited to see how the squad performs. And I think that if they aren't winning, if they aren't a team that is pushing to win the next FNCS, then it'd probably be very disappointing for them. What do you think of these guys?
So when I watched them in trios, Airwax, Nikov, was it Kinstar was the third?
Think so. Who did this? No, Kinstar played with Hunter, I'm pretty sure, for trios.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Wait,
I'm drawing a blank here. Either way, when you watch them in trios and just them play in general, they play so intelligently. A lot of people just rely on their skill and pure mechanics in order to win games, and are always one step ahead of the lobby, putting themselves in the best position in order to help them. Not that they're not great mechanically and skilled, but that's not what drives them to be successful. That is their baseline, and then they use their intelligence in order to help them as teams out there. So just like you, I'm excited to see this work out. They pick some team names too, so it's not Airwalks, Nikov, Nate, and Hawkers go after.
Yeah, like,
you know. So
that was a thing. Like, before we even talk about the next couple of squads, like, that was my biggest thing that I want to see change. Like, please, Epic, if anybody who even has any sort of relationship with Epic is listening, please tell them to allow teams to submit names for the leaderboard. Please, I don't want to have to say Airwalks, Nikov. I don't want to have to say Beehive, Ritz. I don't want to have to say Stompy, Mongo, Echo. Like, I don't want to say it. I really don't want to say it. I really just want to be able to say, hey, like, Team XYZ. That's why I was so happy that Misfits has a whole lineup of just Misfits, right? They have Andretta, Ares, Kylix, and Osmo. Like, I was so happy to see that team, because I was like, finally, I can just say Misfits, Team Misfits. I can just say it, and that's it. Like, you know who I'm talking about. That's their team. It's really, really, really frustrating having to just individually say everyone's names as part of their team. Hopefully, like, and it's like, I was thinking maybe I can just hybrid it. Like, I know for another team that I'm really excited to see, Mexi, Verox, Smith, and Motar, it's like 3 out of 4 of those guys are Fnatic. Like, can I just get away with calling them like Fnatic? You know,
I don't know about that.
Like, is anybody gonna notice? Like, surely nobody's gonna notice. But it's like, it makes it so difficult. Please just allow teams.
Fnatic team and Mexi.
Imagine like, Team Fnatic and Mexi. It's like doesn't sound too nice. let's take a jump to NA for a second, actually, because we've been talking a lot about EU, and I know NA is your specialty, your hometown, well, not town, but you know what I'm trying to say. Tell me what trios you're excited, squads, sorry, not trios. What squads you're excited to see for?
I think all of the teams on here are going to be teams that can compete at the highest level, except probably Innocence, Assault, Binny, and Diggy. So actually see what we're talking about, the squad of Zayt, Saf, Booga, and Stretched, and then the NA East champions and trios, Xro, Macwood, Calculator, and Vinny.
Yeah.
Guys that came in second are adding 72 hours, so Vivid, Chaps, is lucky in 72 hours. No, I just threw a bunch of names at you. In my opinion, I give the top spot to the guys that just won it. Yeah. I mean, maybe this is just recency bias, but you can't take away the credit of winning the first ever Fortnite Championship Series. Like, what they did and the plays they made during was incredible. Throw frag out. You see Macwood sit on low ground, get his team some extra placement points, like a couple elims, and just kind of stay in the game, getting them those extra points. Yeah. When I was talking to Macwood, they almost actually broke up because qualifying rounds of the FNCS, they weren't playing how they expected themselves to. Broke down, had a conversation, was like, all right, guys, let's not get tilted. Here's how we have to play. We can't just frag out. We're focusing on placements. And it obviously worked for them. You know, I think together they have a great understanding of the game.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that team because, like you said earlier, like Vinny is, you know, they believe Vinny is the best support player in NA in the world, and you know he is undoubtedly one of the most elite support players that there is available. So for them to pick him up is like amazing, and obviously, you know, they have the chemistry there already. Like Xro and Vinny have played with each other for a long time. You know, they're all part of that little like 1x clique or whatever. They have like that's my biggest thing. Like people considering chemistry rather than just kind of focusing on he's cracked. Like yeah, he's incredibly talented. Like, you know, fit is like the most important thing, right? Because even though like we're talking here about all of these like squads and stuff, some of these squads might change. Like once we actually get the chance to play squad competition, right?
I can guarantee you, at least one of the squads we mentioned will be switched up before the end of the champions.
So it'll be interesting to see what changes. Like, obviously, a lot of the time we don't get much information or intel about that kind of thing. Maybe that'll change in the next coming weeks. But like, yeah, I think I was definitely excited to see that team formed. Obviously, Booga, Stretched, Zay, and Saf is like they were like the team that was instantly announced, right? Like I said at the start of the show, like literally like 10 minutes after the announcement on the stream, Booga came out tweeting that. What do you think of that team? And even like respectively their results before they decided to pair up with each other?
I think any team that has Zayt and Saf is gonna do pretty well. Then you add the solo champion Booga and Stretch, who has just burst onto the scene as one of the top players in NA East. Yeah. I don't see eating. Booga and Stretch have that chemistry of playing together. Zayt and Saf have that chemistry of playing together. So if can put it together and find a play style that works for all of them, they're all good enough mechanically to win. Yeah. It's all just a matter of coming together and playing. Yeah. I don't know if this is in people's heads enough, but sacrificing some of your play style to benefit your team. And that's just part of the whole chemistry thing, is understanding what works best as a squad.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, a lot of it's going to be interesting to see where like those problems arise from, because obviously Booga, like before playing with Stretch and Clarity, like he was on incredibly good squads and things didn't work out. And I think people, just start to question, hey, is he the problem? Like, why isn't he able to fit and work with these amazing players? Because even though they get good results, like the chemistry isn't always there, right? And it pushes them apart. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with Zay and Saf. Hopefully all goes well. But yeah, once again, back to the name thing. I just want to be able to call them one name. Pardon me, sorry. I just want to be able to call them one name. Speaking of like easier ones to say, I think like what happened with the Swedes, there are the Danes who put together their own God squad. Thomas, Boyer, Kluja, and Elokrats, literally once again, like the top 4 Danish players, just all onto one squad is going to be really fun to see. Like I just really want to see how all this com stuff works, like because like my view is like that was one of my things behind why the French have been so successful, right? Like when your play style is focused more on like your actual strategy rather than your mechanics, you need the comms to be there. So like in these 4 international lineups, these 4 national lineups, like really, 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 really hope they work. But once again, like the main problem with us having this conversation is that it's all unknown. Like we haven't even seen any of these players play as part of a team yet. So hopefully we can come back in like a few weeks once we've actually seen these guys play and kind of give more of an analysis on how they work together. I wanna quickly get into the recently there was obviously, or in recent times in general, there's kind of a controversy going on in China between Hong Kong and China. I don't know too much about it. I'm not too educated in that field, but obviously I was very much aware of it because obviously it's currently affecting the NBA, right? And the NBA GM Daryl Morey came and spoke up about it and caused a lot of backlash. It's caused a lot of tension between the NBA and Tencent, who obviously are like, Tencent's like the Amazon of flipping China. Like Tencent like are involved in everything, like literally everything. It's crazy. And obviously a WoW player came out and kind of spoke up about the situation, and Tencent own 5% of like, is it Blizzard? Yeah, they own like
they own 5% of Blizzard.
Yeah, they own 5% of Blizzard. And obviously the player came and spoke out, and like the way WoW reacted to it was obviously disgusting. It, like the reaction that they got from everyone was poor. Like they what was it like? They took away all his earnings, and like they did like a lot, and it was like everybody was scared, right? Because it's like they are only owned by Tencent 5% and Epic 40%. So everyone was like, geez, like you gotta be quiet about the situation. But fortunately, a representative from Epic came out and basically said that Epic, are like players who compete in Epic games have free speech. Like they encourage their free speech. And someone on Twitter kind of said to the guy responding saying, so if Tfue won an event and said free Hong Kong, would Epic respond negatively? And he kind of said no. So it's good to see Epic do something right outside of Fortnite, because they don't do much right when it comes to Fortnite anyway. But let's not talk about that. So
it's mean.
Yeah. So it was nice to see that happen. Do you know much about this whole situation?
So I actually just wrote about this morning. So basically what happened was there's an international Hearthstone tournament, and that won the tournament on stream put on a gas mask, goggles, and along the lines of liberate Hong Kong. So then that player had his $10,000 in earnings taken away from him. He's banned for a year from playing. And also the casters, who had no idea he was doing this and did not participate in this, also got suspended. So 3 people for one quick statement were disqualified from any Hearthstone competitions, probably even any Blizzard competition. And when you look at the numbers, Blizzard 12% of their revenue comes from China, so it's a pretty hefty chunk. But it does scare me when you see things like the NBA, Blizzard, and everyone having to come out against essentially Tencent, who's a gaming powerhouse. I mean, they own in so many different gaming companies. It's incredible, as well as like a lot of different social media and stuff like that. So it was good to see Epic CEO Tim Sweeney basically say, you know what, I respect your criticize me. I respect your right to criticize the U.S. I respect your right to criticize anyone. That's your right. I can't tell you you can or can't do that. Good to see him saying the right things, but granted, they haven't been put in that situation yet. He says he's still the majority stakeholder when Tencent owns 40%, but let's see what happens if someone actually does on one of their streams say, you know, free Hong Kong or something along those lines. That's a whole different situation.
Yeah, of course. It's always different when you actually put in the scenario. It will be very interesting to see what comes of that. When I get into Season 11 rumours, though, of course, Season 11, like we said earlier, has been delayed and it should be coming very soon. There's been rumblings of a new map. Obviously, I'm very excited for the potential of a new map. I think it could rejuvenate the game. I think it will bring life back to the game, life that has been lost. How do you feel about a new map? Do you think we need it, or what's your take?
We need it. The game's not stale at this point, but I think people are just getting worn out with playing the same old thing. And for once, I think that a whole different map, and you know they're coming with new like content, weapons, and items and stuff like that, so that's expected. But a new map would kind of give people to invest in the game. You know, you got to try out different POIs, try out pass and things like that. So it just gives people more to do, and in my opinion will be helpful towards rejuvenating that interest in Fortnite.
I personally, right, I haven't been playing the game much recently, and obviously for the past couple of months, like obviously I've said this a lot, how I stopped playing around just before World Cup started. And like my biggest thing now when I play, on rare occasion I do, I have console friends and IRL friends who ask me to play with them. Like I play, we hop in the bus and it's like, alright guys, where we landing? And I look at the map and I'm like, damn, I don't want to land anywhere here. Like there's nowhere here that interests me when it comes to landing, right? So I think it will be very fun to have a new map. I think it's very much needed. You know, I feel like there's probably a lot of people who feel the way I feel. It's like, damn, like I don't want to land anywhere. I've landed everywhere so many times, like I'm sick of it now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for Season 11. Any other wish you got for Season 11? I know there's a lot of things that people want, and you know, a lot of the time we know we probably will never get them, but is there anything that you think maybe we could see come to Season 11?
I mean, this is a huge wish that I don't know will ever happen. I really like the way League of Legends implements patches and new items into competitive play. So it's out for essentially a week or more, and then once the next patch is updated, typically they'll have all that stuff that they've tested brought into competitive play. So they let the general public test it first, and then we'll bring it into competitive before just throwing new content into competitive because, haha, Fortnite, right?
It'll just be interesting to see how they move forward in terms of how they operate their game and the decisions they make, and not doing what Epic has been prone to doing for their whole history of just messing things up. Like if they get Season 11 wrong, I'm very scared that like it will be the actual like downfall and decline of Fortnite, like set in stone, right? Like I'm scared for that, because it can either be that, it can either be like the steady down for Fortnite, or it could be what, you know, brings life back to the game and makes it the best thing we've had in ever. Like,
And I'm really hoping it brings life back to Fortnite again, because simply just throwing a bunch of money at it has worked, but I don't think that's good for the health of the game, because one, they're not going to be able to continue to bring tons of money to this if people aren't playing or watching. So you have to be able to keep both parties, the casual and the competitive players, happy. And maybe that's by separating them. Maybe that's by giving them rooting interest in one another. Who knows? I think there's quite a few ways you could do it. But another thing that's out there I'd like to see for Season 11 is the separate loot pools. It's a long overdue that get thrown into competitions a day or two before. Than like the junk rift. Wound up taking that out, but like that has no place in an end game for competitive play. The TAC SMG, I mean, if you watch, I think it's game 5 of the finals, Zexro literally does not pull out anything, just grinds through people's builds with the TAC SMG, and they win the entire game because all he had to do was sit there and by the time everyone else was done fighting down below, it was an easy cleanup. So I would love to see cleaned up and improved for the competitive scene.
100%. We're going to wrap things up. It's been a pleasure having you on here. Hopefully we can have you on in the near future. Hopefully there's more to talk about as Season 11 unfolds. Tell the people what you're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. What are you getting up to?
So basically just doing the same old. When I have some free time, I'll do some analysis and put out some work about the game. We'll regularly be writing articles about the competitive scene. You can find me on Twitter at Somebodysgun, or, dailyesports.gg is where all my articles go. So if you like competitive Fortnite, go ahead and check it out.
Somebodysgun did an amazing interview with Matt Quid recently, so be sure to check that out. His Twitter's going to be on the screen. My Twitter's going to be on the screen. If you wanna talk to me about Fortnite, tweet at me. You want to talk to me about anything, just tweet at me. I'm down. I always reply to DMs. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you soon.